Hey guys, it's Old Man Wags here with Dirt Killer Pressure Washers. We're working off site today to show you what it's like to clean with a professional rig system. If you remember from some of our previous videos, we're working with a 6 gallon a minute hot water skid. We're probably not going to use the hot water aspect, but that is important to mention in case we do flip it on when we do some of the concrete later. This house that we're working around, we're going to go ahead and do a nice walkthrough, show you everything that I like to point out to not only the homeowner, but also myself as we're getting ready to start cleaning. If you notice on this side, the majority of what we're focusing on is going to be underneath this patio. There's a little bit of dust and debris, but more importantly, carbon buildup on this aluminum siding. As we're going to be focusing on it, the key takeaways here are our goal is probably not perfection because it's older aluminum siding and it may not come out 100%. The goal or the target of cleaning this area is just going to make the entire thing look more even so it doesn't stand out as much from the homeowner's perspective as they're walking around the property. As we get around to the other areas, we're going to point out some things, but let's go ahead and get started with this front section. You'll notice this one window behind me has some trim spraying off of it. What we're going to do is basically not spray at that direct angle so that we don't have a problem. You'll also notice the mailbox behind me on the door. We want to make sure that there's nothing in there. All that paper envelope stuff, if we get too much water near it, it can definitely ruin whatever important documents they may have. So again, it's important to tell the homeowner, hey, make sure that's empty. We're also going to take note of things like this electrical panel flipped in the up position. We'll go ahead and flip that down. That way we don't have any electrical hazards inside or outside of the house. Let's go ahead and start moving around our property and we'll see what it is that we can take away from it. We get over to this side. We have two real easy bushes to get behind. They're trimmed off enough that we can kind of spray at a goofy angle and get that section. Our gutters over here aren't too bad. They've got a little bit of basically organic growth and definitely some dirt, but we'll go ahead and take care of them. Things to note on this side would be the AC unit that's hiding right in this corner. We just want to make sure we're not spraying it directly, but in fact spraying all the way around it. This side of the house, not too big, but down low, we do have some string trimmer damage. We want to make sure we're not spraying directly into the foundation, not to get anything wet, but we're going to just cascade over top by standing pretty far back. We can pretty much reach the majority of this section over here, so it's really not that big of an issue for us to clean it and continue walking. As we get through here, again, nothing that we really can't reach, but you'll see we got a little bit of concrete starting over here, tiny little walkway. The biggest thing about this is that's too small for my surface cleaner to hit, which means I'll be detailing that by hand. As we start moving to the back of the building, we've got some shadowing underneath. Again, there's carbon stains and the dirt stains. You'll also notice that we're missing a light bulb. So once again, taking attention there to not flood the surface of the electrical. We've also got a patio right here with some wood furniture. We're going to spend a little bit of time here later, but one of the first things we have to do is, of course, get everything off of this patio. So we're going to go ahead and move fireplace, hammock, patio set. We'll move the grill, we'll move the recycling bin. And the next thing to note, anytime you're working around exposed electrical, the important thing to ask the homeowner, is this up to code? Why do we ask that? We want to make sure that we're basically not going to get zapped the moment we start spraying stuff on there. Once again, take some caution. If you see anything that's obviously an issue, take note, maybe don't spray in that area. Just tell the homeowner, set the expectation that we can't spend as much detail right there. As we look down in our basement walkout, we have some leaves that we have to clean up. We do have a pretty good downspout down there that's going to ideally get all the water out for us. Once again, talk to the homeowner. Is this an issue with flooding? If it is an issue with flooding, we've only got about that much of a lip on that little stair well. We want to make sure that we can clean over top of it, the water cascade down, and it not flood the homeowner's basement. So maybe that part we have to do in sections. We walk out here. We've also got some parts on this side. We've got our glass block right there with a little flap window. We have our what looks like a kitchen exhaust vent, and we have a door that's open. Taking note to all these sections, we're going to go ahead and close those down, spray as delicately as we can around those areas, and again, try not to flood that entire section. Because we have more glass on this side, we're also going to pay a little bit more attention to our mix and maybe do something a little different. Walking out the driveway, this is pretty straightforward, but we're going to go ahead and give some attention to this, as well as the sidewalk as we start to pick up around the side of the building. This is really the northern side, so we have a little bit different staining compared to the rest of the house. We've got some Gloeocapsule magma growing on this side, which is just common cyanobacteria, or the type of algae that we're going to go ahead and taking care of. As we look at this, we're going to try to do a little time lapse and see exactly how much effort it takes to clean this specific section. If you're cleaning in the northern region of the US, you'll see very different staining like this all over the place. This is usually the majority of the growth that it is that we're focusing on with this specific type of service we're offering. Let's go ahead and keep on moving. We'll take note on this side. This gutter is a little bit worse, not that unexpected because this is the northern side of the property. And then once again, we've got our sidewalk that goes all the way back around to where we parked our rig. So we're gonna go ahead, fire the machine up in a moment, and we'll talk about some chemical mixes.
Good.
All right, so before we get started on what we just walked around, let's pay attention to our chemical process. A lot of what we're taking care of on this building is going to be carbon-based. However, they also have a lot of glass or a lot of windows. What we're going to take care of with the carbon-based stains is using Hellbender and sodium hypochlorite. We're going to mix both of these together. We're going to put about 1 cup of this in this 5-gallon bucket. And ideally, that's going to take care of all of the staining that's underneath of the aluminum trim or underneath of the, we'll call it the shadowing of the overcast of the house. As we move around to the backside where it's more of the algae and organic growth, we're going to switch over to the Boss. My main reason for this is that's the side of the house that gets a little bit more light. In addition to, that's the side of the house that has the more decorative glass, and this leaves glass looking pretty amazing when you're done with it. It almost looks spot-free. The only thing that you're really going to see is the mineral content of the water supply that the householder is providing for you. We're going to do the same mixture with that. Take about 1 cup of this, mixing it in a 5-gallon bucket of sodium hypochlorite. That should take care of our entire house. This isn't that big of a project, so ideally those 2 5-gallon buckets take care of us. The real trick is going to be going around this entire sidewalk. Just because of the curvature and everything that's going on with the curb, I don't really have a good scope for how big that's going to be as far as how much chemical we're going to use. So we're just going to call that another 5-gallon bucket, and we're going to mix that with Hellbender, being the more aggressive of the 2 detergents that we're going to use. We're also going to take note in a second of how I'm set up and really take notes on what we can learn from that and why I'm set up that way. All right, so notice the way we're set up, unlike when we did the mobile house washing series, where we're basically toting a machine around the property itself. In this case, everything's stationary. We've got water going through this hose reel and hose into this water tank. The machine's then sucking from that tank and pumping out discharge through this hose. What we've done is, because we're parked curbside, we have to run across a public sidewalk. What's really important here is to put some sort of, we're just gonna say, landmarks that people that are walking with strollers, just taking a walk, they can't see this hose laying on the ground. They're going to see these buckets that are sitting here. So if you have some sort of traffic cones that are set up to give someone a visual idea, representation, there's something here, there's a trip hazard. What's even better is if you have signs with maybe your company logo on them that says something like Dirt Killer Pressure Washers is working here, or something like that, that just gives people a visual representation that there's something different about this specific spot. In addition to that, it makes people a little happier when they're about to roll over something if they're not surprised, and once again just helps kind of minimize that trip hazard. In this case, it's almost impossible for us not to go across the public sidewalk just because this is a corner property. So we're going to have to do this, and we've set up these 2 5-gallon buckets just again to give someone an idea of what's going on right there. All right, so the last thing that we're going to talk about before we actually fire up the machine is the tools that I'm going to be using to wash the house itself. Surface cleaner aside, which we'll demo here in a few minutes, we're going to be using a snub nose gun jet that has a integrated swivel on the bottom. We're going to be using a standard number 16 X-Jet assembly. We're going to be using the standard hose that comes with the inline shutoff valve right here. What you'll notice the entire time that I'm washing is I'm sitting here adjusting this head in and out. And what that's going to do is allow me to hit the bottom of the house, dial that out, hit the top of the house. That way I don't have to switch nozzles, use a different J-rod, or use any kind of basically other devices. The entire house we're going to wash in low pressure. In theory, the target that I'm hitting the surface at is about 300 psi by the time I've got the distance away from the siding and the time it's actually hitting the surface. So we're going to go ahead, fire the machine up in a second, and we'll show you what I mean. All right, guys, so as you can see, we made quick work of this property. Basically, as we went around the entire thing, some of the things you'll observe that are common in our other videos, we wet the siding first. That cools everything down so that this baking sun doesn't flash evaporator soap. Then we soap from bottom to top, allow everything an adequate amount of dwell time, and then we flood rinse from top to bottom. There were a couple areas that we had to repeat because we didn't go so hot with the chemical that it just killed everything in one flash. But basically what we did is use the minimal amount of detergent to accomplish the most amount of results. In addition to that, you'll notice on the back patio, we used our surface cleaner. In this case, it was a Silver Helix 21-inch, paired perfectly with our machine. Again, made quick work of the patio, the driveway, and the entire wraparound sidewalk. You'll also take note that in the patio as well as the driveway, we took special effort and attention into post-treating as well as pre-treating. That way we have optimal results as far as how well it cleaned, how deep it cleaned, and more importantly, how long it's going to stay looking clean. We did not post-treat the rest of the sidewalk that wraps around the property, with the sole reason of that technically belongs to the county, and the homeowner wasn't as worried about it as he was the other parts of the property that actually belonged to him. In addition to that, you'll take note when we went around the property itself that on the northern face, everything came as clean as possible. Our carbon debris that was sitting up in the top of the aluminum flashing, it did a really nice job of blending. It's not completely clean if you really zoom in with like a 4K camera or something like that, but the point is it looks as good as you could possibly get without starting to break down the paint or take away too much time and really damage any of these surrounding fixtures. The point of this video was to give you a demonstration of not only how to use an X-Jet, but how well a trailered setup can help you in the field as far as your progression and making yourself more efficient as a contractor so that ideally you can make more billable hours at the end of each pay cycle and pay week. This is Old Man Wags with Dirt Killer Pressure Washers. We'd love to hear your feedback in the comment section below. Let's kill some dirt.